As I sit here, I'm thinking of all the reasons why I can't make this video. All the obstacles in the way. Now, obviously, I can make any video. I mean, there's nothing stopping me from making a video. I could say anything I want to and make a bunch of crazy noises, and I can just put it out there on the internet. I'm hesitant to make a video, and I'm always hesitant to make a video because before I make the video, I want everything to be perfect. I want everything to be in working order, and I set up my little space to make these videos, and I think of all the things that are going wrong. I moved the desk so it was made on the right spot, and I still don't think it's perfect, but you know, that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. As I said before, you live and you learn, and you go on about your way. For me, this is a difficult thing. And the reason being is it's something I kind of want to talk about today. That is what I would call your locus of control. And it's not something I really thought about previously, but Gavin asked me about a month or so ago. He sits me down and he says, all right, so when you fail a test, who do you blame? Is it your fault or is it the test fault? And I said, typically speaking, if I fail a test, I'm blaming myself. It's my fault. It's nobody else's fault. Typically, you're given the material, you're given time to study, you know what to study. If you pass or you fail, I believe it's on the person. And he says, well, you have an internal locus of control. And so I said, well, what is that? And he kind of explained it to me, and I looked it up some more. And ideally what it is, without getting too deep into it, is somebody who has an internal locus of control is somebody who basically says, I have control over what is going to happen and not going to happen. Give me one moment. I'm going to adjust the camera because I have control over what's going to happen. So ideally is you take the blame for what you mess up and so on and so forth. External locus of control is more along the idea of it's society's fault. I live in this place and there's nothing I can do about it. And either you're just lucky and everything goes your way and everything's decided by fate and there's really nothing you can do about it. Now, to be honest, I don't think anybody falls on the extreme of either one of them. I mean, I believe that I have an internal locus of control, but I understand there are certain things that I can't do anything about. Or I would say you kind of know what's out of your limit. For example, I don't think I'm ever going to be a wide receiver in the NFL. I know. I mean, does that mean I have an external locus of control? No, I mean, situations you got to kind of know your limits. I'm bringing this up because we talk a lot about, and at least I'm talking a lot on this channel, about setting your goals and achieving and having fulfillment. And I think it's important to understand if having a healthy internal locus of control, I believe, is paramount, not just to achieving your goals, but I think it's paramount to being fulfilled by achieving your goals. I'm going to read something here. All right, so I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I got my notes here. I read this the other day. This was by Theodore Roosevelt, and I'm going to get to it real quick. He says, nothing in this world is worth having or worth doing unless it means effort, pain, difficulty. No kind of life is worth leading if it is always an easy life. That's by Theodore Roosevelt. At least it's attributed to Theodore Roosevelt. I've been thinking about that sentence for about the past month. Part of me says, Theodore Roosevelt, he was this Rough Rider. He kind of lived a really harsh life, and this is kind of his justification for his life. For all intents and purposes, he didn't live what we would consider a great life. It wasn't cushy at all. And so he lives this really difficult life, and he's out there and he says, all right, so yeah, it's wonderful. You convince yourself of that, Theodore. Convince yourself that you have this wonderful life. But I started thinking about it more and more. So when I was a kid and I was growing up, my father put me to work with my grandfather. And my grandfather had this farm. We would go out and we would pick peas and cucumbers and lima beans and all sorts of vegetables, and me and my cousins we would go out there with him. I would get up about 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning during the summer, and so, I'm about 12 years old, and he'd take us out there, and we work from about 6 o'clock in the morning to about 11 or noon, and then we would come home. Well, he would drop my cousins off first, and then I would go back to Grandpa's house, and we would watch Perry Mason or Matlock. That's a kind of a side note, but we watched Perry Mason or Matlock or some Western, and we would shell peas for a couple of hours. One day I'm out there and I'm just having a difficult time. I was a very small kid. I'd say to my grandpa, I said, "Grandpa, I can't do this. It's just too hard for me. The other kids are bigger than me, and I can't keep up with them." And he says to me, he says, "You need to stop making excuses." And I said, "Well, what do you mean, Grandpa? I'm literally smaller than them. Don't you see me and you can see them?" And he says, "I see you and I see them, and you need to stop making excuses." And he says, "You're my grandson, and what you need to do instead of making excuses is you just need to work harder." And I said, "Well, I am working harder." He says, "You're not working hard enough." And at first I say, okay, whatever. Grandpa doesn't know what he's talking about. It's obvious I'm right and he's wrong. But I didn't want to upset him. So I pulled everything I had together and I just busted my tail off. And I thought to myself, for about the first month, I guess, or three weeks to a month, I said, I'm going to pull all the reserves out and I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can because I don't want to upset my grandpa. But still, he's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But at the end of that time, I learned something. What I learned was I could do it. That was it. It was crazy, and my mind just changed. And I learned that if I dug down deep inside and I took responsibility and I didn't sit around and wait for everything to come to me, and I took action and I took control of the situation, then I had the ability to change my world. Because for a 12-year-old, that was a revelation, and it's something that's kind of carried throughout my entire life. I think it comes down to there's a difference between having what you want and having what you want and being fulfilled. And as I think about this quote that Theodore Roosevelt made about the life that's always difficult, that if it doesn't have pain and difficulty, and it's not worth doing unless it has pain and difficulty and it's challenging. Because I think what that comes down to is this. You're at a certain level right now. We've all talked about this. This is what we're talking about here on this channel. You're at this certain level. If you want to get to this level, you got to put some effort in. And it's going to be difficult at times. It's going to be challenging at times. And when you get to this level, you're going to put even more effort in. And then it's going to be difficult. It's going to be challenging. And then you're going to feel all right. And it's not going to be as difficult and challenging. But then you want to step to the next level. And so on and so forth. I think a life that is marked with pain and difficulty, or I should say this, a life where people achieve their goals and give it their all, is going to be marked with challenges. It's going to be marked with things you have to overcome. As I've already said on this channel, is reflected is what I have to overcome to film these videos. That's not even mentioning the fact that in about any time, any moment now, I can have a screaming baby walk through that door, and I love my screaming baby, by the way. And I'd have to stop this video and so on and so forth, and that's okay. But these are obstacles that I have to overcome. And the question is, do you want to have this external locus of control waiting for everything to be perfect for you, or do you want to say, I'm going to change my world and work with what I have and improve myself on a daily basis? I told you at the very first video, I shouldn't even be making videos right now. I just had a baby. But I keep on thinking, maybe it's not the best time. But you know what? I'm going to slowly learn to make these videos. And by the time my daughter's 1, I'm going to be that much better than if I waited to start until she was 1. No, I'm not going to be as good as I could be if I didn't have a daughter and didn't have a job and I could spend 50 hours a week doing this and learning everything I needed to learn. And I think I would make better videos if that were the case. But if I waited until all the right opportunities fell into place, I would never begin. I'm not going to be at, say, level 10 next year, but that's okay. But I say I'll be at level 2. That's much better than where I was to begin with. And I'm slowly going to learn. So either I can sit here and I can make excuses for all the reasons why I can't do the things that I want to do, or I can start doing the things I want to do. And the same applies to you. You can make all the excuses in the world you want to make. And you can tell me why it's difficult, and you can tell you don't have to tell me anything, to be honest with you. I personally wish you the best in all that you do, but if you don't achieve your goals, it's probably not going to affect me too much unless you're trying to cure cancer. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously you're probably too busy if you're doing something like that to be watching these videos, but it's probably not going to affect me that much at all. I wish you the best. Whether or not you achieve something that you want to achieve, you've got to dig down and make that determination. You got to do it for yourself. I mean, if you do it for anybody, you got to do it for yourself. So like I said, I was thinking about this ideal behind what Theodore Roosevelt was saying, and how tough he was. And he also says this, and I like this. I love this quote. He says, "It is hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed." And this is what I'm going to say to that, and bear with me. Given the 2 quotes that I've said and what I've just told you, you should give up trying to reach your goals if they're too difficult or impossible for you to achieve. Alright, so the question now is, what type of person are you? Because that sentence, what I just said there, is going to do one of 2 things. It's either convince you to give up on your goals because you care more about what I had to say than you do about your goals, or it's going to convince you to dig down deeper and try even harder. I hope for you it's the latter of the 2. And I want to say, I don't think either one of those options is necessarily wrong. Neither one of those is necessarily wrong. Because the goals we're talking about are goals for self-fulfillment, not necessarily goals that affect other people. If it's a goal that affects another person, then yeah, you shouldn't give up on it. For example, if you have an anger problem, you probably shouldn't give up on that goal of correcting that anger problem. If you have a problem with the way you treat your wife or husband or kids or whatnot, you probably shouldn't give up on that anger problem and that goal. Because one day, you may find yourself in a position where whether or not you want to correct that goal or not is going to be irrelevant, because you might find yourself, say, incarcerated. And if that's the case, whether or not you have a goal to correct your anger problem or not may be irrelevant at that point in time. But I will say, if you have a goal of losing weight, I hear being in jail or prison really helps with that whole weight loss thing, so you'll have that going for you at least. But like I said, we're going to be talking about the goals of self-improvement, and some of those goals are going to be more important than other goals. What you're determined to do may matter more to some than to others. Here's how this works out. So Theodore Roosevelt, he says that it's hard to fail, but it's worse never to have tried to succeed. What does that mean, to try to succeed? The question I have is, are you putting forth your best effort, knowing that you did all you can do to ensure success? Are you putting forth just enough effort to get your hands a little dirty and your clothes a little dusty and hoping that it all works out? Of course we'd be happy in the end if the result is success, but would we be fulfilled? Would you rather give your all and come up short, or barely give any and achieve victory? Let's say you choose the latter. What happens when victory stops coming so easily? What happens when your luck runs out, so to say? What happens when you face real adversity? Is it possible that the ones who choose the life of ease are purposely putting themselves in places where they never have to be challenged? They know they could do so much more and greater things, yet they don't strive for them out of fear of failure, or perhaps complacency has overcome them. It does feel great to be a big fish in a little pond. Now let's look at the person who gave their all but fell short. Why did they fall short? Was it because they set a goal that was impossible to achieve? Perhaps it was something that was out of their control. Who knows? Maybe they have a difficulty that we don't comprehend right now. I'd like to think when that person set their goal out, they took a long look at themselves and they said, I know I can do that. That's not a worthy goal. I want to set out to do something that I don't know that I can do. I want to be more than what I am. And I'm going to give it my all. Not because it ensures success at the task at hand, but because it brings more fulfillment than success in a smaller victory. The question is, what is your goal? What do you want to achieve? And why?